The following program contains explicit candor. If you suffer from self-deception, Randall may not be right for you. Check with your political advisor.
Proclaiming the truth in the highways and byways of the world. Fighting for justice in the dark alleys of politics. Raising the voice of resistance to a fevered pitch. Man enough to walk his cat. Randall Terry.
It's true. Habemus papem. Jorge Mario Bergoglio está el Papa. Alleluia. I just wanted to show off a little bit. All right, we've got so much to talk about. The new Pope, where did he come from? What is his life like? This man is amazing. I mean that. You're going to like this show. We're going to do a two-part special on the new Pontiff of Rome. But first, a profound word of wisdom from the Professore.
The national debt is 1.6 times 10 to the 13th power in dollars. Why are you looking at me like that? You don't know scientific notation? Think about it. What are the numbers? That means that each of the 3.14 times 10 to the 8th American citizens owe a total of 5.2 times 10 to the 4th dollars apiece. Think about it. That's preposterous.
Welcome to the program, friend. Well, the world has a new pope. The Catholic Church has a new pope. And he is the leader of a church that has 1.2 billion people. So whether you're Catholic, evangelical, Protestant, Orthodox, Anglican, Muslim, pagan, it matters, all right? Anyone who has influence at any level over 1.2 billion people is to be taken seriously. I want to give you one quick item of history before we look at Pope Francis I, which is cool in itself. The Pope is, according to Catholic doctrine and dogma, and even Orthodox dogma and doctrine, and Anglican Orthodox or Anglican doctrine, the Pope is the successor of Peter. Okay? When Christ said, "Who do men say that I am?" and Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," Jesus said to him, "You are Petros, you are Peter." Jesus changed his name and said, "Upon you, or upon this rock, you are Petros, and upon this Petros, on this rock, I will build my church." And then when Judas hung himself, the apostles drew lots and they got Matthias to replace him because they said, "Let another take his office." In other words, the office of Judas as an apostle continued. The office of Peter as an apostle continued. And since Peter's death, there have been a succession of his successors in his office as the pastor of the church in Rome, the pastor of the universal church. And really for the first 1,000 years until the Great Schism, everyone said, yeah, he's the top pastor of the whole church. That's how it was for 1,000 years, okay? And my instructors in Bible school did me the great service of telling me, some of them did anyway, you better thank the Catholic Church for the Bible that you're studying right now. Because if it wasn't for them, it wouldn't have been preserved. And it was the Catholic Church, the bishops of the Catholic Church, with the Pope signing off, giving his seal, who said, yeah, this is what the Old and New Testament is. This is what the Bible is. So anyway, part of my ongoing stress as a Christian and as a leader in the pro-life movement and in various social causes is that we've got to work together, okay? We've got to hang together or we'll all hang separately, as the founders of this republic said. And we just have to set aside some of our differences, some of our bigotry, so that we can stand for Christ, stand for truth, stand for the babies, stand for marriage, stand for the 10 Commandments, okay? And this Pope does that, or at least he has when he was a cardinal. So, what do we know about this man? We know that he is 76 years old. We know that he was born in Buenos Aires. We know that his dad was a railroad worker. We know that he has 4 brothers and sisters. We know that he did not study for the priesthood right away out of high school, but he studied rather to be a chemist. We know that he ended up becoming a Jesuit priest, and we're going to talk about the Jesuits and their checkered past in this program. Sorry, guys, you've done some really weird and bizarre things, and I think you know that. So he served in Argentina with incredible humility. There is the fact of him washing and kissing the feet of 12 patients with AIDS, meeting with the poor constantly. When he became the archbishop there and they drove up to pick him up, he refused the ride. I'll tell you about that in a minute. He cooks for himself. He chose to not live in the episcopal palace, but rather to live in a small apartment. And that basically would suggest why he has named himself Francis I. By the way, this is the first pope to ever take on the name of Francis. And what the Vatican and prognosticators and news people are saying is that he picked that name in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, who, if you know some church history, took a vow of poverty, and also, interestingly, was a great reformer of the church. Francis of Assisi was a great reformer. So there's a lot of people out there that are crossing their fingers saying, please, God, let this man be a reformer, because the Catholic Church right now is in desperate need of reform. Nobody that I could see saw this coming. Now, there are some people that say, well, he was number 2 when Benedict was elected. Right now, he's 2 years younger than Benedict was when he was elected. But you know what? The cardinals are never supposed to talk about what happens in a conclave. So those kind of reports could be absolute folly. Just somebody calumny, just somebody making stuff up because they want to be the cool insider. The end of the matter is, I guess it only took about 5 votes, and there is a new pope. So when we come back, what does the Pope like to travel by? Corvette, limousine, rocket ship, or other? You'll be surprised. Is it other? How would you like to be able to reach hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of potential customers with your product or your company or your web-based business? Well, you can do that right here on this show. Every single day, we get phone calls or letters or orders online from states all over the country where people are watching this television show. Right now, we are seen in 45 cities at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time every night, and then a rerun again at 12:30 midnight. You can reach them using this show at advertising rates that are so inexpensive, it would blow your mind. So, if you're interested, contact us at the phone number that you see on the screen or the email address, and we can talk about how you can grow your business and help support this show. Welcome back, friend. I hope that you can stay with me through this whole program and our next episode, because we're going to look a little bit more in depth than some of the news broadcasts do about the new Pope, Pope Francis I. All right, what does the Pope like to travel by? Well, on the first day that he became Archbishop, a limousine pulled up. He had his own driver, and he said no. He would take public transportation. He had been doing so for a long time, and the locals knew it. So whether it was by metro or bus, they knew that they could find him there in the morning. It's kind of like a local leader, politician, somebody who's important, going to the coffee shop every morning at the same time, and the people who want to have a little impromptu visit with him get to do so. He did that with and for the poor, the common of Argentina. He has stood strong, and we're going to talk about that in some of our later segments. He has stood strong in Argentina on political issues that are truly inherently ethical issues, and clashed publicly, repeatedly, with political leaders in Argentina. And it's had some stuff to say about key issues such as child killing and whether or not somebody should be taking communion. So we're going to come to that as well. All right, he is a Jesuit. He has a PhD. He is not a typical Jesuit, however. He's very conservative. For those of you who are familiar with the history of the Jesuits, mine is a smattering, but I know a little bit, done a little bit of reading over the years on the Jesuits. They were started by St. Ignatius of Loyola to lead the Counter-Reformation, all right, basically to enforce the Council of Trent, which anathematized or declared accursed the entire Reformation. The Jesuits were like the hammer for the Pope. In fact, in, I believe, what year was that? In 1586, there was a Catholic Jesuit priest who was tried and executed for the Babington plot. It was a conspiracy to have Queen Elizabeth of England murdered because she had renounced Catholicism and started the Anglican or the Episcopalian Church, Church of England, to have her murdered. A priest was involved in this plot to have Elizabeth murdered and to have the Mary Queen of Scots put on her throne. Mary Queen of Scots was also executed, Queen Elizabeth's cousin. So these were bitter and brutal days. And there was a lot of bloodshed over which form of Christianity would be practiced. The Jesuits got so out of hand at one point that they, as an order, they were actually suppressed. In 1760, they were suppressed and by the Vatican, by the Pope himself. It wasn't until 1814 that suppression was lifted. Unfortunately, in modern years, the Jesuits have a pretty bad reputation as being left-wingers, liberals, people in support of liberation theology. The essence of liberation theology is that Marxism and Christianity can not just peacefully coexist, but that much of Marxism is in fact Christianity. And Cardinal Ratzinger, who then became Pope Benedict, fought tooth and nail against that, as did Pope John Paul II. And oddly, Cardinal, help me with the name again, Bergoglio, I want to say the name right, the second G is silent. Cardinal Bergoglio fought against the Marxist influence and the liberation theology influence in South America, where it was rife, okay? The biggest foothold of liberation theology occurred in South and Central America and was for decades a real nuisance to the Catholic Church. He, as a Jesuit, was the odd man out, standing with John Paul II, who made him cardinal, standing with Pope Benedict, who received a document from him that was put together by Catholic bishops in South America to show their fidelity to their opposition to liberation theology and to Catholic orthodoxy. But liberation theology is a great danger and has done much harm in the Catholic world and in the church as a whole. There are many Protestants who adopted liberation theology as well. Marxism bad, slavery, theft, covetousness, Christianity good. Freedom, private ownership of property, the proper payment of a wage, okay? There are things that, there are a couple places where Marxism and Christianity agree, because a broken clock is right twice a day, namely the just payment of a wage to a worker, all right? That's in my opinion, after doing a lot of reading, that's the place that they are the closest, the just payment of a wage. All right. In any event, his name is Francis I. He's from Argentina. He told the folks of Argentina, right after he became Pope, don't come to visit me. Don't spend the money on coming to visit me. Why? He said, use the money to care for the poor. A man who cooks his own meals. A man who lives in an apartment when he was cardinal, rather than live in the episcopal palace. A man who takes public transportation so he can visit with people. A man who washes the feet and kisses the feet of AIDS patients. A man who berates Catholic priests in Argentina, rebukes them for their treatment of certain people. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But before I take this quick break, I already told you that. I'll ask you in case you just joined me, all right, little factoid. What did the Pope train to do before he decided instead to become a priest? I'll answer that in case you just joined us. And if you heard me say it earlier, you better remember, right? I want you focusing here, all right? Focus, focus. Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you. Welcome back to the program, friend. If you just joined me, what the current Pope, Pope Francis I, trained to do before he became a priest was to be a chemist. Hopefully he can mix the right elements to get the Catholic Church back where it needs to be. He's made some great comments about evangelization, which we will get to either today or in our next program. All right, breaking with tradition right off the bat. When he was elected by the cardinals, normally what they do is they bring a platform into the room and all the cardinals approach him and he is elevated above them. He said, no, I'll stay down here with you guys. When he came out on the balcony, the first prayer traditionally that a pope says is for the people. He broke tradition twice on that count. His first prayer was for Benedict XVI, Bishop Emeritus of Rome. And then, rather than lift his hands in blessing over the crowd that had gathered in St. Peter's Square, look at what he did. He asked the people to pray for him. He's bowing here to the people. This flabbergasted the press and the people. No one in modern memory has done that. Acknowledging, I need your prayers. And you know what? A man doesn't get to this point in life as 76 years old with all that he's done to contrive this. It's not contrived. It's who he is. In fact, another point of little factoid here, the very first morning after he became Pope, what does he do? He slips out of the Vatican in a normal car and goes to a chapel to pray. The night before, if my memory is correct, he doesn't take the big papal limousine. He takes an ordinary car, goes to the hotel where he had been staying, gets his own bags from the room, doesn't have a valet do it or a deacon or a priest, and goes to the front desk and pays his own bill. What an example of humility and servitude. And I think that he knows, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, I think he knows it's a bit of an inherent rebuke to some of the bishops and archbishops and cardinals who might have gotten just a wee bit too self-aggrandized, shall we say. Even in Rome when he goes there, he walks a lot, he won't do that much anymore, and he takes public transportation. He's not taking fancy cars from the Vatican. God bless him. Let's pray for long life for him and pray that let's pray that he's able to take the stands as Pope that he did when he was Archbishop. Because he got into some pretty serious fights. For example, obviously, even though he washed the feet of AIDS patients and has shown great compassion to people suffering with that tragic disease, he vehemently, intensely fought against same-sex unions in Argentina. And he said, it's a real and dire anthropological throwback. I'm wondering if he's thinking of it being a throwback to pagan Grecian times when so many young boys were molested by homosexuals. It was part of Greek culture, pedophilia. And he's making, I don't know if that was what the connection was, but this I can quote directly from him. Let's not be naive. We're not talking about a simple political battle. Same-sex unions are a destructive pretension against the plan of God. We are not talking about a mere bill, but rather a machination of the father of lies that seeks to confuse and deceive the children of God. In other words, Argentinian legislators, you are right now the servants of Satan, okay? The father of lies is behind this, he said. Do you know how much guts that takes? How many bishops, archbishops, cardinals in America have you heard say that the homosexual movement in America, demanding homosexual marriage and same-sex civil unions, how many of them have you heard say that this is satanic? This is from the father of lies. For that matter, how many evangelical superstars on the radio, on the television, have you heard say that this is from the father of lies? He also talked about it being child abuse, that you are literally abusing children by putting them in this position. All right, I've got to take a break. I pray that he holds as strong as Pope as he did when he was bishop. And I have to tell you, I had high hopes that Pope Benedict XVI would do and say some things regarding the horrific scandals in America, like the Kennedys and the Pelosi's and the Bidens, who all say that they're Catholic, receiving Holy Communion while their hands are drenched with the blood of babies. Didn't happen. You have renegades like Cardinal Dolan in New York, Cardinal Wuerl in D.C., who do whatever the heck they want and never received, from all that we can tell, any type of rebuke from Pope Benedict. Now, why does it bother me? It's because of some things that Benedict said before he was Pope, when he was Cardinal Ratzinger. So we're going to compare some things that both these popes have said, look further into the backgrounds of this new Pope, and give you this little question before we take a break. What 3 languages does Pope Francis I speak fluently? And did he learn them from Rosetta Stone? Can I buy the one that he used? Welcome back to the program, friend. El Papa puede hablar italiano, español, y alemán. And that was me showing off my Spanish, telling you in Spanish that he can speak Spanish, Italian, and German, and we do not have any confirmed reports that he learned any of those languages from the Rosetta Stone Company. All right. By the way, I got to read you this quote. This is awesome because everyone is really taken aback by how simple he is in his garb, not trappings, etc. And this is what he said about vanity. An example I often use to illustrate the reality of vanity is this. Look at the peacock. It's beautiful if you look at it from the front, but if you look at it from behind, you discover the truth. Whoever gives in to such self-absorbed vanity has huge misery hiding inside them. All right, what can we expect? I'm going to talk more about that in the next episode. We're going to look at some of his statements in the press. We're going to look at some of the stands he has taken. We're going to compare things that he has said to things that Cardinal Ratzinger said. One thing is certain. He will very shortly be presented, he already maybe has, the 300-page document about the homosexual corruption that is inside of the Vatican. It is referred to, if you Google the gay mafia or the Catholic gay mafia, that's what it's referred to in Catholic circles, about the horrific corruption and perversion and influence of the militant homosexual movement inside the Vatican, even having some cardinals as participants, whether they're being blackmailed or not. There's all kinds of speculation. But what we know is that a homosexual prostitution ring was broken up inside of the Vatican within the last couple of years. So he is going to have his hands full. We can expect that the Curie, that's the head of various congregations inside of the Catholic hierarchy in the Vatican, we can expect certain heads to roll. Certain men tendering their resignation and the Pope saying, very good, we'll see you later. We can probably expect some of the more orthodox archbishops and cardinals, such as Cardinal Burke, who used to be the Archbishop of St. Louis. We can probably expect some of them to get even more prominent positions. All I can say is I hope to heaven that he will intervene in this country and around the world regarding men and women like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden who are defaming the Catholic faith, Christianity itself, and the communion, the Holy Eucharist, whatever you want to call it, because they have blood on their hands from child killing when they receive communion. We'll talk more tomorrow.